Good morning here from AIQ. We're in Uruguay. If you're wondered why I'm dressed like an Eskimo, the heater went out last night and we've had some extremely cold weather. They actually got rain and some freezes. Last time it was this cold was 91, where it went negative. Uruguay doesn't usually get this cold. We were about 3 to 5 Fahrenheit above freezing, which for here is extremely cold, and that'll pass after today. That system pushed a bunch of the rain and cold frost up into Brazil. Anyways, let's just run through heading into the weekend how we would use AIQ to kind of make our lives easier, faster, not rely on weather guys to tell us what they think here, especially in light of how difficult this year has been with the constant forecasts of problems on the horizon that just aren't materializing. So first off, we put out yesterday here, you can see on Substack every morning, put out notes, but part of our monthly note, what does it take to create a July weather story? And our point was that basically kind of need 2 of these 3 weather issues to come together. The first one is Brazil continues to lag. Farmers put the grain away. They can't get it out of the fields. Brazil doesn't have much to offer. The U.S. continues to get that business, weak dollar helping. And ultimately, peak crop expectations happened with that AgriConsult 150 number that I think was probably more of a headline driver than anything else, but statistically also probably more likely than people realize. The second one is dry stretch sneaks into the U.S. and expands. We've had that try about 72 hours ago. We've now got more moisture out in the second week. At the same time, a lot of the bears, people are throwing in the towel on the weather market. To get a catalyst, you need sentiment to be negative. And then finally, Eastern Europe, in particular, France, it's extremely hot. And one of the things that's gone on in Europe is that buyers, Black Sea, European buyers of grain just haven't needed to worry about forward covering in months. You need to probably spook them at some point. Let's jump over to AIQ here. We go to the Viz generator. Let's start with Brazil. It doesn't look like we're going to get a lot of help from Brazil. It's actually entirely clearing out. The dry season's here, even in the south. And the temperatures, ideally, warming trend, which we're seeing, this will help Brazil harvest pick up. Jump over to the European Union. It's hot. And this is that heat over the Balkans we were talking about. We were concerned with Romania and the Ukraine in particular. You've got some pretty large yield assumptions in Romania. So that'll be one to keep an eye on. The corn there could quickly lose 1 to 2 million tons. France just continues to stay piping hot. So your kind of main corn areas to watch was this Poland, Hungary area, Romania, Ukraine, and then central France. And again, precipitation continues to be poor. You do have a system here pushing into Romania, Ukraine a little bit. Keep an eye on that. Otherwise, the rest of the grain areas are pretty dry. We'll be marking down some crops by next week as this continues. Let's jump over to North America. We had brought up Canada, also Saskatchewan, like 72 hours ago or so. Looked like it was drying out. It looks like we have a decent amount of rain trying to come into the prairies. So keep an eye on this. And then real quick, it looks like a lot of that heat is also going to push to the east. But the bigger deal here is that when we look at the U.S., we don't have any heat. As far as getting excited about corn, it's difficult for us without heat, especially if we're going to continue to get lingering rain systems. The bigger deal is that we put a bunch of precip in the last kind of 24 hours back in the Midwest. But what we'll talk about that's important is where that's at. So you can see here, there's rain everywhere. North Dakota gets a little bit more interesting if they miss, and you have a little bit of heat out here in the west. When you look at the anomaly, there just isn't very much threatening. Now, the only difference is where this rain is. So what is the latest 2-week forecast for Illinois, USA? Let's take a look at a lot of this rain. About half is out in the second week. If you take a look, we've got roughly 52 millimeters total accumulated into 2 weeks. But you've got 11 of this and another 15 of this, so half of it is between July 10th and 15th. The second week forecast hasn't been very accurate. One of our points we always make is that it's hard for the U.S. to have a problem if Illinois doesn't. So that's just, it tends to be more of a local cash basis issue. There's a number of reasons for that. But Illinois, North Dakota, Ohio, Kansas are states we zero in on. This is just a red flag. If we come in next week and any of this rain isn't there, the latest 2-week forecast for North Dakota. And the other thing just keep in mind here is your highs of kind of 90, 91. It just isn't very threatening. Let's take a quick look at North Dakota. We're probably looking at around similar, a little bit less it looks like, so maybe 40-ish millimeters. Be a bit warmer, 92 week 1, get up to around 96 late July 16th, so you're going to put up some heat towards the end. Again, relatively unreliable. Yep, 41 millimeters expected, and 11 of that, so between 12th and 13th. So similar phenomenon, light rainfall at the end. You know, what's really interesting going into this weekend is week 2. Can we count on the rain here in week 2? And so when we come in on Sunday, this is what the trade's going to be watching pretty close. With that Europe forecast, if you were to take either of those systems out, we've made the point many times. I think our monthly note covered it fairly well. We'd rather be lucky than good when it comes to timing. But shorting corn at $4 with asymmetric risk and a bearish sentiment, it certainly doesn't feel right, especially in the context of a weak dollar, stronger South American currencies, less forward acreage intentions if that trend continues, and more competitive U.S. exports. We don't put a lot of weight into these trade deals helping ag a whole lot just because they're being rushed through, and agriculture tends to matter a lot more to the other countries. But any surprises, as you saw yesterday, will end up catching shorts when prices are down around cost of production levels. Easy way, spend a couple minutes today, ask Andy a couple questions, and you probably got a pretty good look at what's going on. It's all based on the data. You're not relying on another person whose bias we've seen build into these forecasts, and they just haven't been very accurate. So yeah, try it out and let us know if we can help. Thanks.